not living in a free country. We are being oppressed. I think it's a bit of a ploy to get people off social media because it generates independent thinking and it's all for your safety. No. That's absurd. There's been a lot going on. It's been exhausting. Reinhardt said that she basically wanted free land for Israel and Australia. No, that's not putting our nation first. It seems like things are moving in the direction of another plan that we don't quite know yet. All right, you guys, welcome back to another video. This week, there's been a lot going on. It's been exhausting. First, over in the UK, they're implementing the under 16 social media ban, which is following our lead on that. They're following Australia. It's very concerning because it shows the direction that Western countries are heading in. Censorship. Also, over in the UAE, they became the first Arab country to ban under 15s from social media. So it's not just Western country anymore. It's not just the Western world. Also, One Nation, last time I checked, they're very close to hitting $5 million in donations under their Fire the Lie campaign, which is brilliant. Like, that's really great. Pauline Hanson did her speech at the National Press Club, and I'm sure you guys all know how it was received. The lefties were losing it, but I personally really liked the speech. I thought it hit all of the points that Australia and Australians are struggling with at the moment, the key points that we need to implement to move forward and bring our country back to a great nation. I personally really liked it. And I think that she just speaks very candidly, and I like how she rolls. However, the monocultural comments were under a lot of fire. Everyone on the left was freaking out, throwing their tanties, calling One Nation all the regular names that they call everyone on the right, and comparing Pauline Hanson to Trump. The amount of TikToks I've seen, I'm just like, oh my goodness, this is a bunch of virtue signaling going on. Can't handle it. But then I was personally taken aback because Gina Reinhardt did a speech and basically said that she wants to give free land to Israel to allow them to build advanced drone technologies and have Israelis work in Australia. So, a lot of things going on recently, but let's get into it. Super excited for this video. I need a good rant, need to go over some things with you guys, so very excited. Okay, so the first thing that I want to get into, and I've been thinking about it a lot this week, because I think it is so important, and it is free speech. All right, I think it should be written into our constitution, or at least written into some sort of law that says every citizen of Australia has the right to free speech as a basic human right, because we do not right now. And politicians will get online and tell you that, you know, we don't have free speech like the United States because they want to protect Australia as a multicultural nation, and it's all for your safety. No, that's absurd. That's absurd. Okay, that's control. There is no justification for not allowing free speech in a country because free speech, it provides safety. Free speech allows, you know, corrupt individuals to be called out. It allows governments to be called out about what they're doing. If citizens can't speak their mind on a topic, then the government controls what is classified as free speech and what is classified as not free speech, then we can't speak out against people. And furthermore, this can also be into the topic of what is classified as hate speech and what is not classified as hate speech. Then the government in power can pick which side of the narrative they want to pursue or which, you know, arrests they want to pursue. And in my opinion, we saw that with the recent arrest at Pauline Hanson's protest. I think it's about a week ago now, there was one far-right extremist that got arrested, compared to all of the far-left extremists that, might I add, were not arrested despite holding banners saying death to this nation, and then also death to One Nation, but then they scribbled out the one. I think that's, you know, inciting some hatred, don't you think? Ridiculous. But then you can get into, you know, how the far-right extremists was also spreading hate. However, that's not the point I'm trying to make here. I'm not trying to get into that argument. The point I'm trying to make here is that this is a clear indication of the government choosing when to act and when not to act regarding what is hate and what isn't hate. But that's just a quick example of what I'm trying to say here, guys. I hope it makes sense. But just back to the point, like, we don't live in a country of free speech. We're not living in a free country mainly because of that. And we need to start saying that Australia is not living in freedom. You know, Australia very much likely could become a police state that does not allow citizens to speak freely. We are being oppressed. Like, that's not a big claim to make. That's just the reality. So let's stop covering it with, oh, Australia is such a modern and new country of freedoms and their citizens have freedoms. No, No, we do not. We need to stop saying that rhetoric. We do not have freedoms. We are being oppressed. And I mean, if you simply just look at the facts of what's happening in our country regarding free speech at the moment, you will see that we're being oppressed. That's not some big claim or hyperbolic claim to make. The facts right in front of you. You can't speak your mind because of the hate speech laws are so vague. And a very important distinction here. We're not saying that we need to get rid of the hate speech laws so people can start spreading hate freely. No, come on. We're not saying that. We're saying that the hate speech laws are so vague that they can be just completely spun to anyone's definition of what hate is, which is ridiculous. And I mean anyone's definition, not just an individual judge or an individual, I don't know, solicitor or something, anyone's opinion. So, for example, if I don't agree with an opinion that you have said to me, for example, I could say, based on whatever potential protected group I may be in, that's a hateful comment to me, and my feelings are hurt because of you saying that. So it can be spun to anyone's definition. That's what I'm trying to get at here. So let's not get it twisted. When I say, or when people say, let's get rid of the hate speech laws, it's not because we're condoning spreading genuine, hateful and threatening things. It's because it's an excuse to censor genuine free speech. And also, those threatening things should be classified as hate crimes instead. They shouldn't be classified as hate speech. It should be a crime if you're threatening someone. And this is also just genuinely makes me pretty sad because when you're younger, you think you live in a country with real liberties, where your rights and ability to speak freely are protected. But then you realize that that's so not the case. You have to stay within those certain lines. Stepping outside of them makes you realize that the system that you thought protected your basic rights don't always do so in the way you once believed. And what I'm talking about here is genuine freedom of expression. I'm not covering for extremism in any bloody means, okay? I'm talking about genuine freedom of speech. And I mean, furthermore, just further in this point, let's look in the future, say 10, 20 years from now. God, what would it look like? Seriously, I don't even want to think about what it would look like. And the only thing that's making it better situation is that there's a lot more people speaking out against what's happening, what's actually happening in our country. There's a fair few people speaking out against it. And if that wasn't happening, I don't even want to think about what Australia would look like in the future. No, it looks pretty grim. And the only thing that is making the situation better is knowing that those people are speaking out, and knowing that many Australians do see the reality of what's happening in our own country. Therefore, I think we do have the potential to be an actual free country in the future. But we got to remember, right now, we're not. And we have to stop saying that we're a modern free country because we're not. We are being oppressed. And now, let's move on to the under 16 social media ban. So, when it happened in Australia, it was absolutely absurd. I'm sure you all remember. It was ridiculous. It didn't happen so long ago. I think it was last December, if I'm right. But I'm sure you guys remember. It wasn't too long ago. And we realized that it didn't do anything. And the majority of under 16s are still on social media. It's nuts. And in my opinion, I think they would most likely potentially be using, more dangerous methods to be on social media, using fake accounts, buying accounts, and doing all of that without parents or someone knowing that they're doing so, which prior to when it wasn't banned, parents may have known that their kids are on social media and have been surveilling it, but now they might be doing it, behind the scenes sort of thing, which also just begs the question, if these laws were ineffective, which they were, I think I saw a report the other day of about 60% of under 16s are still on social media, so it was a failed attempt. Therefore, you sort of have to question, was there any other motives of that law being introduced? And also, furthering this, what we're seeing in the UK of them implementing this, why would they do so? Australia failed. Just look at our country. We failed at it. All the teens are still on socials. Why would the UK implement the same thing and potentially go further in implementing digital IDs? Oh, well, in my humble opinion, I think that social media is extremely useful. I think it's a great tool. I also think it's an extremely dangerous place, and I think it's up to the parent and the actual platforms such as Meta, TikTok, all of the others, to protect users. But ultimately, it's up to the parent. So if the government actually wanted to protect children, I think they would be educating the parents. I think they would be saying, hey guys, this is a genuine risk. This is what the reports are finding. You got to protect your kids. That or further in this, maybe even go through the education system and say, guys, have your private accounts. Okay, just be safe, right? Educate yourself. These are the risks. Don't post stuff that you don't like, whatever. Educate the kids, educate the parents, and also maybe the government could go to social media platforms and say, look, you got to crack down on these measures. We're not going to go so far into your business and into your company that we're going to say you have to ban it, otherwise it's illegal in our country for some users to be using your platform. That's literally what they did. So I think they'd be educating people, and I think they'd be going to the companies and actually having a conversation about it and saying, how can we actually implement this so it would be effective instead of just blanketly banning it? Because I'm not going to also ignore the fact, yes, social media is an extremely dangerous place if used in the wrong way. However, on the other hand, it is an extremely useful platform for free speech, like I've said before, like at the beginning of this video. And I know that the platforms do censor people, experienced it myself multiple times, have been blocked on TikTok, videos taken down for nonsense. Everything I was saying was factual, was misinformation supposedly, community guidelines, ridiculous. So I've experienced some censorship on TikTok. However, I think it is a great place to communicate overall, with people like we're literally doing right now. We're on YouTube talking about these things. And also it's a great place to show other perspectives and other beliefs. So I think these social media bans, in my opinion, are actually just a cover to try to get the youth of Australia, the youth of UK, and now the UAE and many other countries. Canada wants to implement this. I'm pretty sure France wants to implement it as well if they're not already. Oh no, I think they're set to implement it soon. But anyway, I think it's a bit of a ploy to get people off social media because it is a free speech platform, because it is independent news, because it generates independent thinking. It stimulates that. And it's just another step that we've talked about before with this free speech. Here's another piece of evidence. The youth is being oppressed. Australia's citizens are being oppressed. The government is literally making it illegal in some senses. I know that there's not any, consequences if you are under the age to be on social media. However, the government's still making it illegal to be on those platforms, saying what we can see, what we can't see. Ugh, I just don't like that. I don't. Like, what? That's not a free country at all. You should be able to use social media. And this all just reminds me of that quote that people say, when once you see it, you can't unsee it. And I can't unsee what I'm seeing, and I don't like what I'm seeing at the moment. But anyway, that's the under 16 social media ban rant. But now let's move on to what happened with Gina Rinehart and One Nation. So let's be clear. Gina Rinehart donates to One Nation, all right? She's a billionaire. Therefore, there's some suspicion around that. One Nation could be getting swayed on a big donation. There is a suspicion. However, in my opinion, I think that any Australian citizen should have the right to support and donate any political party they want and donate how much they want to a political party. I don't have a problem with that side. It's just up to One Nation to stand strong and not get swayed. However, we also got to remember that Gina Rinehart isn't an official elected position or member. So we also got to remember that aspect. I know there has been some reports saying that Gina Rinehart does influence some of Pauline Hanson's policies, which we got to keep an eye on that. We just got to keep people accountable. Like, that's not cool. But back to the main point. Rinehart said that she basically wanted free land for Israel and Australia for drone defense reasons. In my opinion, that's not Australia first. It's not an Australia first rhetoric. That's not putting our nation first. Land in Australia should always be owned by Australians. And we need to also decrease the amount of foreign influence on our nation. God, and advocating for more is definitely not putting the nation first. So that was a big controversy. That happened. We just got to keep One Nation accountable, because for me, they're still the best political party option. God, what are your other options? Go to our video on this channel of the video that we did of what are your other options, because we went through it. I'm like, oh my God, I'm not voting for the Greens. Oh, I'm not voting for Libs, not voting for Labor. One Nation's the best option out of them all, but make your own mind up on that. But for me personally, I think they are the best options for the reasons of enriching free speech in the Constitution, for the reasons of cutting immigration. You know, Pauline Hanson also seems like a great leader and actually has the interest of our nation at heart, for also the reasons of implementing nuclear power and cutting net zero. And for those reasons, I still support One Nation despite this. However, for me, I'm going to continue to support them because they are the best option. However, we got to call them out and keep them accountable because this is not acceptable. I do not support what Gina Reinhart said at all. But on the other hand, this is why Australians don't like politicians. And we've got to change that as well. Like, being a politician should be a very big honor. You know, you're representing people. But based on track records of other people and just what we've seen before, there's always some side deal, you know, and that's why we don't have that much trust with politicians. But like I said, I still think One Nation is the best option, but you guys make up your own mind on that. It might be a bit of a deal breaker for you, having a donor of a party stating these things. Might be a bit of a deal breaker. Make up your own mind. But that's what the controversy was. That's what arose the other day. And now, this is the end of this big rant. For our country, though, it doesn't seem like things are happening at the moment that are even acting in what's best for us at a basic level. It seems like things are moving in the direction of another plan that we don't quite know yet. And I'm not being a conspiracy theorist here. I'm just noticing something that feels a bit off. You know, when you're like, I haven't figured out what's still going on here, but it just feels off. You know, that just feels like a gut response happening, a bit of an instinct that's just going, I don't like this, you know? It's getting that gross feeling like, no. And I'm getting that right now of the direction this country is heading. So please let me know, guys, what you think about that. Do you feel the same way? What are your thoughts overall on everything that we covered today? I'd love to hear what you guys think. And also, I hope to see you guys this Thursday for our last episode of our investigative series. It'll be episode 4, and I'll be going over bit of a huge episode covering everything, piecing together the last 3 apps and answering the question of what our defense reality situation is actually like. So make sure you're there on Thursday at 7 p.m. It will be going up. Also check out Kenga and sign up for the waitlist for these shirts and these jumpers that I wear. And I hope to see you guys on Thursday. Thanks.